Hi mate, it's Rich. I've been trying to get hold of you, but I guess your battery's gone or you're just not answering your phone. But anyway, just an idea for the podcast on Tuesday. Apparently, there's a bunch of guys all dressed in yellow that are claiming to be a football team playing at Wembley. I'm not too sure on the details, but yeah, I think they're imposters or something claiming to be a Premier League club. But we'll talk about it Tuesday. Speak to you later, mate. Bye.
Hello and welcome to episode 15 of View from the Sideline podcast. I'm Rich and Chris is with us today. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
We've got to be a bit gentle with Chris today. He's suffering a bit from the football over the weekend.
It's like a football hangover, I would say, and it's still going on now.
Well, you have little sympathy from me, Chris, as that will unravel during today's podcast. So you're going to let us know what's coming up this week, Chris?
Yeah. So we won't be discussing anything to do with the Tottenham Chelsea game of the weekend. All right, no. So I've got the teaser this week. Then we will be going into the Premier League review, summary of the lower leagues, the Championship, League 1 and League 2. This week's special topic is around VAR, which would have come in handy at the weekend, and a brief bit on predictions, the teaser answer, and then what is coming up next week. So I'll go straight into the teaser this week before Rich can say anything else.
I'm so looking forward to this episode. I've been waiting for this since Saturday night. Go on in, Chris. Hit me with a teaser.
So this week's teaser is how many of the current teams in the Championship have never played in the Premier League. So that was how many
teams
of the current teams
out of 24.
Out of the 24 teams in the Championship, how many of those teams have never played in the Premier League?
Okay, that's gonna have to be a guess, but
it's gonna be a guess. But yeah, we'll see how you get on with that one.
I do remember, Chris, because I was actually half expecting when you said last week the teaser was going to be about how many goals Chelsea beat Spurs by at the weekend. So I was just going to give you my answer of 0, but you've obviously given me another teaser.
I decided to change the teaser at about 7:30 on Saturday night.
That was a good choice.
Okay.
There probably will be a theme today, just to let you know. Every now and again, I'll throw a reference in.
Just one or two, though, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll start off with a Premier League review. So the first game, Brighton.
Oh no, you're going to go with Brighton first.
Yeah, no, I'm saving it, Chris. I'm saving it in its proper order. Just to build the tension. So we'll start off with Brighton v Leicester.
Okay, so yeah, the Brighton-Leicester game, probably a good point for both sides, but I actually thought that Brighton felt like they probably could have won the game. I felt that they controlled most of the game. Obviously, Glenn Murray scoring again for Brighton. But the other thing I was looking at is they did actually mention it on Match of the Day that 10 of the 14 goals that have been scored this season for Brighton have come from set pieces, which is obviously where you want someone like a Glenn Murray to, that's obviously clearly where they're getting their goals from, and Glenn Murray's providing those goals.
It was a bit of a typical Glenn Murray goal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Really, from a set piece, a decent header from a set piece. I think it was. I agree with you. I think overall you've got an early goal for Brighton and a relatively late equaliser for Leicester. So I think both teams probably would be happy with a point. I think a definite penalty for Leicester. I think it was a bit of a
silly, really.
It was a bit of a rash challenge, and a brilliant penalty from Vardy. There's no way the keeper
Yeah.
was going to save that. A really good penalty. I think two things for me. Obviously, the sending off, Maddison sending off, which
Dive.
yeah, it was. I saw that he tweeted out after the game that
Yeah, he did.
he was preparing for contact that never came, which I don't quite understand because the contact's not always going to come.
Right.
If you're a defender in the area, you're almost not wanting to make contact. So it was a bit of a shame, really. But I mean, I think the two bookings came 2 or 3 minutes apart.
Yeah,
They were pretty close. But
pretty
I
close.
think it's he's got to get a yellow card for it.
It's just risky and stupid, really, isn't it? At the same time, like to know that you're already on a yellow, to then even I know he said that he was anticipating contact, but still, you know, he's only made himself look a bit silly, to be honest. So
Yeah, I mean, fair play to him for coming out and apologising at the end, but Leicester did well, I think, to hold on away at Brighton for as long as they did to keep the score at 1-0 and then to get the penalty to earn the point. I still feel that like Leicester are still suffering a bit from what happened. They just don't seem themselves at the moment to me. They don't. Do you know what I mean? They haven't got that
definitely.
sort of bite or fight behind them. That I mean, even from when they won the league, they were sort of renowned for how they played and how they fought in games, and everything just seems. Well, the matches seem secondary at the moment, which I guess you can probably still expect, but I don't think they're playing as well as they can do. So I would probably kind of agree that a draw was a fair result, but I think Leicester are obviously 1-0 down and down to 10 men are going to be happy with the point.
Definitely. So the Everton Cardiff game was next. Everton, creating a lot of chances in the first half, but one player that I just want to single out for them. He's having quite a good season, but you don't. He's one of those players that you don't really hear a lot of, but he does the job for Everton, and it's Andre Gomez, the Portuguese guy that they signed in the summer. He always seems to be getting involved in the attacks, and he's got a really decent pass on him as well. But I just think like he's one of those players that goes under the radar a little bit, and you don't really hear a lot about him, but he actually does the job that's needed without really getting noticed.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. I kind of feel as I was surprised it was 0-0 for as long as it was. Really, I think that. I mean,
chances were just coming.
Yeah, Everton dominated the possession. They dominated the goal attempts. I think Cardiff showed a lot of fight, and they held on for just under an hour. I'm still not convinced about Everton, to be honest with you. They always seem to flatter to deceive me, really. I don't know if they're sort of at their level. I think they probably, if they have a good season, they're a top 6 or 7 side. But they always, I mean, they get results, but I wouldn't necessarily say they're really enjoyable to watch. Sometimes I find them quite one-dimensional.
Quite surprised when I saw the league table of how high they actually were. It just surprised me a little bit that they were, just above Manchester United. But
I think they're 6th at the moment. But I think I'd have to check the table. But I think the gap between Arsenal in 5th and Everton in 6th is maybe 4 or 5 points. So that they're kind of the best of the rest, if you like.
Sigurdsson.
He's their best player by a mile.
Such an important player for Everton, isn't
he?
He's one of those players as well. I can see that, not necessarily in the Premier League, but he might be able to move to somewhere in Europe of a better quality than what I would say Everton were.
Yeah, I mean, he was good when he was at Spurs. I
Yeah.
thought he played well for Spurs, but
Didn't really play a lot, did he, for Spurs? It's obviously when
no. Sometimes I
you
think
had
I'm
it
a
because him and Ericsson are very similar players, aren't they? So I guess you wouldn't really need.
yeah, and I mean Ericsson bossed Chelsea at the weekend, and I don't think that's something that Sigurdsson would do. Ericsson absolutely ruled that midfield on Saturday, so I think I'd rather have
That
Ericsson.
game, yeah, mate. All right, steady on. Fulham
Got to get it
Southampton.
in, Chris.
So I did mention to Rich yesterday that I thought by the time that we were recording this podcast, I thought Mark Hughes might have been sacked. He is still in a job, so I think I've been hearing Southampton fans, for the last month, 2 months now, not extremely happy with the way he's managing the club, and I thought that might have been the tipping point on Saturday, but it seems that he is safe for another week. But a massive win for Fulham, obviously under new management under Ranieri. Still, I would say they still need to work on their defence a little bit. But I just think for them, they just need a stable back four. He needs to that back four that played at the weekend. He needs to play them again next week, just so they're playing together and look more stable. But they actually impressed me. Fulham actually impressed me going forward as well with Sessegnon, Schürrle, and Mitrovic as the front three.
Yeah, I thought Mitrovic played well. I maybe look at it slightly differently. I mean, I think there was always going to be goals in that game, but I can't help but think they're kind of both as bad as each other. So I think last week Fulham, I think they played really well against Liverpool, although they lost 2-0. I thought it was the best they've played probably since they came back up. It just wasn't great that it was against Liverpool, and I think Liverpool were always going to win that. But Saints we seem to say the same thing about them every week, but for me at the moment, Saints are probably the only team in the bottom 5 or 6 that just do not show the same level of fight as all the other teams do. If you compare them to Huddersfield or
Right.
Cardiff, even Fulham, they just don't seem to have the same level of desire to get a result.
Do you think that's the players have lost confidence in the manager? Do you think that's got anything to do with it, that they don't feel like that they play at the best of their ability?
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, I talk to a lot of Saints fans, and a lot of what people say to me is that this is the worst, not necessarily the worst Saints team there's been for 3 or 4 years, but it's the worst that they've played over a consistent period of games. They don't look out of their depth, but I wouldn't have any confidence in being a Saints fan that they're going to get a result. When they went 1-0 up against Fulham, I always felt that they were always going to concede. So even though they were 1-0 up, it was still an even game, if you like, because both of the defences aren't great. And I think it's more just the fact that Fulham took their chances, which is why they got the 3 points. And the whole new manager bounce that you get, I think that probably contributed as well. But I'm not sure it's now going to turn Fulham into a different side.
No.
I'm not convinced of that.
Do you not think that Southampton fans will see that Fulham have changed their manager and they've kind of like he's got a win in his first game? Do you not think they would look at that and think, well, why are we not?
Yeah, but I don't think that's always the answer, because that's what Saints did last year. They changed their manager. Mark Hughes came in. They had a slight upturn in fortunes and they stayed in the division, but that's quickly worn off. Otherwise, they wouldn't be where they are now.
Not many are going to want this job either. If he left,
but realistically, who are they going to get?
They just end up with Allardyce. You just know that.
Well,
because there's not really that many other managers out there, I think, that would would completely want it, especially with they have had a bit of turnaround with managers recently. So no,
Well,
but
yeah, but I mean, I'm not Mark Hughes' biggest fan, but I'm not wholly convinced it's just him. I
no.
think it's the players as well. They just don't look at it at the moment.
Well, I would definitely say that Southampton are in trouble now.
Well, yeah, I'd agree.
So
But a good win for Fulham.
yeah, we'll move on to the next game, which is the Man United Crystal Palace game.
This shouldn't take long.
Well, yeah, not the only things I actually got from the game was one, Fellaini's had a haircut. I didn't even recognise him.
No, I didn't either.
I was like, "Who's this? Who's this giant that may he looked like a basketball player?" And his tackle was pretty nasty as well.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Right
It wasn't great.
Right in front of the referee as well.
Yeah, I tell you how I feel about this game, and before the match started, I thought it was one of these games where United are going to turn it around. It's a more than winnable game at home.
Yeah.
Palace aren't great, but the one thing I took away from it is United were probably actually quite lucky to get away with a point.
Well, did you see?
I thought Palace. Yeah, I thought Palace could have quite easily won it. I think they had the better chances.
This comes down again to them not having a good enough striker, I think.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, but I mean, but that shouldn't make a difference to the game, really. On paper, United should be winning that quite comfortably. I've come to the realization that Mourinho's the problem.
I think,
There's just a constant whirlwind of issues and bad press that's coming from him towards the players, or a group of players. So like what he said about Rashford, Lingard, Shaw and Martial, I think, about them being like
I don't know how he gets away
spoiled kids. But
yeah.
Exactly, but there's no way on earth that could be helping the team. So I now actually think he's the problem, and it would not surprise me if he's the first one to go.
Oh, because there's 65 minutes of the game tonight in the Champions League against Young Boys. It's still 0-0, and he's brought Lukaku and Pogba on in the last sort of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Obviously, feeling the need that he needs to bring them on, but
I read as well. They're trying to sign tie De Gea down to like a world record contract. But I mean,
do you want to do that right now?
I don't think he would.
No.
The only thing is where would he go? Because he was always linked with Madrid, but they've bought Courtois. So I mean, where would he go? Really, but I think. Well, yeah, I think that. I think I read that that's half of their games now this year at home where they've not scored a goal.
It's just not like them, is it?
It's not at all. It's not at all. But they're playing so poorly, and I honestly think if Palace had won that, I don't think United fans could have many complaints.
They had chances, but we'll move on. So we've got the Watford-Liverpool game next. Just one of those it's a game of two halves, this one, where not really too much happened in the first half, and then all of a sudden Liverpool come out of the blocks second half and completely changed the game with Salah's goal. Arnold scoring a really good free kick. But one thing I just wanted to speak to you about was Henderson getting sent off.
He knew it, didn't he? He walked before the ref even pulled the card out.
Does it not make you think that by him literally getting up and walking straight off, he was looking to get himself sent off? I just thought it was a bit strange.
I don't know why he'd want to get himself sent off. I mean, I don't think he's been playing that. I don't know if he's been injured, but he hasn't
playing a lot, has he?
No, he hasn't. So why would you want to get suspended? I think it's more out of shame, because it's such a needless it's such a needless sort of challenge when
Because
you're
already,
2-0 up.
I
I
do
mean,
never understand players getting sent off when they're winning 2-3-0. I never understand it.
I think it was Capoue that sort of went round him, and I mean he's not known for his blistering skill and pace on the wing, so I'm not sure he was going to cause them too much trouble, and he sort of just shoulder barges him, and
Silly.
I don't think the fact that he sort of got up and walked
He's right
off.
by the tunnel anyway when he's
Yeah,
got so
I don't think he's got any argument really. I just
No.
think, to be honest, I don't think it's going to affect Liverpool that much. I think they've got people that can come in and replace him.
They just made it look so easy in the second half.
Yeah, but the thing for me is the penalty shout in the first half.
Yeah.
I think that's a penalty. I think if that's given, I think it changes the game.
I think it does. I think it was a penalty. But did you see Alexander Arnold's free kick?
Yeah, it was pretty good, wasn't it?
It reminded me of Trippier's free kick goal at the World Cup.
Yeah, it was a great hit. When you've got him or Mohamed Salah like sort of around the ball, a free kick, your money's got to be on Salah really. But yeah, it was a cracking shot, great goal, good player.
Bit annoying that they got 3 points there. I thought that may be a game that they'd slip up on, and first half it looked like they might, but I think.
Well, I had them down to winning predictions, so I just thought they'd have too much for Watford, and I think it sort of just panned out that way.
Really, Watford's still doing all right though. I think you're going to go through phases like this where you've got to play a few of the top teams, and
well, they're still in the top. They're still in the top 10. So I mean, I think that I agree. I think they're having a decent season. They've got a better goal difference than United as well, which is always good.
Yeah. Well, speaking of goal differences, West Ham, Manchester City. It's just getting.
It's just getting silly. It's just getting silly now, isn't
it? They're just. If you're a City fan and you're watching that week in, week out, you must be so happy, like watching your team play like that.
You must be. But if you listen to Guardiola after the match, he's pretty annoyed by the performance, and I think on sort of if you look at the game as a whole, I think City had a lot of possession, and I mean West Ham did have some chances. They just didn't hit the target enough. And I think City, they had 5 or 6 attempts on goal and scored with 4. So I mean that's a brilliant conversion rate.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So I've heard some people say that the scoreline flattered them a bit. But when you take your chances, you're always gonna. You're more often than not going to win games, but I did hear someone on the radio refer to all of City's goals recently are like 5-a-side goals. They all follow a very similar pattern where it's like a quite long, in-depth passing move, and then there's one killer pass, and the ball comes in from out wide, and it's just a tap in.
Well, but teams need to wisen up to that. Then surely they need to be more aware.
Well, I don't think it's as easy as that. But if you look at a lot of City's goals, that's probably right. A lot of their goals do follow a similar pattern, but you just can't keep up with them.
I'll tell you, Sane, mate, he's going to be something. I know he's young, but he's going to be some player. I think when he gets a bit older.
Yeah.
Even now, he's.
I agree. I think he's quality. How he didn't go to the World Cup, I've got no idea. But I think the scary thing with City this year is you can realistically say they're going to have 3, maybe 4 players that are getting 15 plus goals.
Crazy, isn't it?
If you think of David Silva, Bernardo Silva, Sterling, Aguero, Sane, even De Bruyne when he comes back.
Isn't that crazy?
Mahrez.
De Bruyne is not in that team at the moment because he's out injured, but they're still winning games like that. It's just crazy. Like that, so much credit has to go to Guardiola. I know he's inherited quite a few of that team, but the players that he has brought in, like I didn't really rate Bernardo Silva that much last season. He was good, but I'd say this season he's definitely stepped up.
Absolutely, agree. Robbie Savage said that you may as well give him the title now, and I've got to be honest, I don't disagree with him.
I even said that after match of day. When I was looking at the league table and after watching City play, I thought to myself, I'm going to say it. I think Man City are going to win the league.
Yeah. We both said it on the very first podcast. I don't think we've changed our minds.
Well, next up is the Tottenham Chelsea game. I don't know if you want to wait until we go through the other 3 games from yesterday and Sunday and Monday.
Do you want to leave it to the end? We'll leave it to the end.
We'll leave it to the end. Okay, so we'll go to the Bournemouth Arsenal game.
What an own goal! Have you ever seen a better own goal than that?
I was literally about to say I don't think I've ever seen an own goal like that one.
That was such a finish. He's caught that as sweet as anything. What a goal!
The thing is, he never ever in front of the actual goal where he's supposed to be scoring. 9.5 times out of 10, he'd never get that in. Never.
No. but to me, this one almost it kind of follows a similar pattern to the Watford-Liverpool game, where how that first goal for Bournemouth was disallowed, I'm not sure. He's onside. He's clearly onside, even by I think is it Mustafi that's on the floor. But he's the length of his head onside. Maybe because he's on the floor that the assistant referee can't see him, but there's no way that should have been disallowed.
It's crazy, really, to be honest with you. And did you? Oh well, I looked at the stats at the end of the game. Arsenal had 20 shots on goal, but only 4 on target.
Yeah,
Actually had more shots on target than
I mean, I fancied Arsenal before the game. I thought they'd probably win it.
I thought it might be a draw.
But I thought that Bournemouth were probably unlucky in the end. I think the goal Bournemouth got was on the break from Arsenal, sort of tick-a-tack of football.
Yeah.
And they lost possession, and then Bournemouth broke a great finish. I thought it was a really good goal from King, but Arsenal's. This was the other thing, because the foul that led to Arsenal's winner was the same guy that scored the own goal. So again, that was sort of a needless foul where he, I think that was Mustafi again. He pulled him back, and then Arsenal take a quick free kick, and then sort of 4 passes later, it's in the middle of the goal, and Aubameyang just sort of slots it in.
Tap in. And I didn't be happy with because he had so much space in the middle. He was kind of in between the 2 defenders.
I think they caught Bournemouth off guard. But after the second goal went in, I mean, Bournemouth hit the post. It was actually Lerma, wasn't it? He hit one from about 20 yards. The guy who got the own goal, he hit one and it bounced back off the post. And I thought Bournemouth had a couple of other decent chances where if they had got a point, I don't think it would have been that much of a surprise. But Arsenal stopping the rut of their 3 games drawn, last 3 games in the league that they've only taken a point from, so they've stopped that slide now and back to winning ways. But they've got Spurs next Sunday, so that should be a good game.
Sure, hear about that next week.
Well, it depends on the result.
All right, so the Wolves Huddersfield game was the second game on Sunday. Huddersfield, playing really, really well. But that was their first away win since February in the league. So it's been a long, long time since they won an away game. And Wolves now are 5. I think it's 5 without a win in the league. Just look like they're struggling a little bit now after obviously an impressive start.
They were playing so well. I think
wrong because it's not like they've had any injuries or anything. And it doesn't.
Well, no, I mean, I think so. They lost to Watford 2-0 at home, and then they lost to Brighton, and then it was the Spurs game where, well, I mean, Spurs 3-0 up, and then the 2 penalties. Then I thought when they went to Arsenal and drew 1-1, I thought they played really, really well, and I think that was probably a game that they should have won. But what impresses me is Huddersfield, really. If you think about their last, I mean, it's their last 3 games, so they've taken 7 points from the last 3 games. So they beat Fulham, didn't they? Then they got a point at West Ham, and now that win on Sunday. So they've gone 3 points bottom of the league up to 15th after 3 games. Such a turnaround.
Yeah, a bit
Where
like, well, we'll go on to Newcastle in a minute, but pretty much the same for them, really, isn't it? But
yeah, but I know. I mean, we forgot to mention it last week, but we did get a message from a Huddersfield fan, didn't we?
we did,
Where
yeah.
the gist of the message was basically it's difficult to judge Huddersfield just from seeing highlights. If you actually go and watch them live week in, week out, what you actually see is completely different to what you see if you're just seeing sort of edited highlights. And I've got to kind of agree with that against Wolves. I thought they played really well. They were so dangerous from set pieces, and they defended really, really well. I mean, Wolves had a couple of chances, but I wouldn't actually say Huddersfield were in any danger at any point in that game. I thought that they really deserved the 3 points there.
The goals scored by Aaron Morley, both of them were pretty well taken, weren't they? The first one was just kind of like a edge of the box, sort of like you went for placement rather than complete power, and then obviously the free kick, which
the first one was a good finish. I think the keepers, I think the keeper's at fault. You shouldn't get beaten at your near post like that with a free kick. But
I always find it weird when they see free kicks like that, because I think the keeper's always going to blame the wall. I think in that situation.
Yeah, but to be fair, I think it was Neves. There was quite a bit of coverage of him afterwards in the wall. He's on the end of the wall and he sort of shirks away from it. So he sort of turns his back.
Yeah, good win though for Huddersfield. And well, speaking of wins, Burnley, Newcastle, 3 wins on the bounce for Newcastle now. So
yeah, they're up to 13th.
Turning things right round now. But for Burnley again, it's another defeat, and they are literally hovering above relegation zone now. They've only won 2 in the last 15 Premier League games. That's not a lot, is it?
It's not great. It's not great at all. I mean, I think that game was quite a hard one to call, really. I think maybe even last season, you'd be Burnley would probably be pretty strong favourites at home, but something seems to have happened at Newcastle. I mean, they got the same squad as they had 3 or 4 weeks ago when they were really struggling. But like you say, 3 wins in a row now. And like Huddersfield, I mean, that's taken Newcastle sort of above West Ham, which a couple of weeks ago you never would have thought was going to happen. But you've got credit where it's due. I do worry a bit for Burnley. We can't use the Europa League hangover anymore, but they just concede. I think. Yeah, I think I saw that apart from Fulham, they've conceded the second most in the league. I think Burnley have, which you wouldn't normally associate with them. So they need to turn it around. They need to turn it around quickly.
They're like I said, hovering just above relegation. Yeah, they are going to need to think of something quick.
The bottom of the league, the bottom of the table is quite interesting though, because from Fulham in 20th to, I mean, there's now a 4-point gap up to West Ham. So, like Newcastle have sort of pulled away a bit now, and Huddersfield seems to be doing the same thing, and Palace have got sucked into it a bit. So yeah, it's changing a bit down the bottom.
Yeah. All right. Well, any other games?
Now we're going to talk about this game.
Dele Alli to Son. His pace on the counter has been so important. He's breezed beyond his man Jorginho, and he's into the box, and he's scored a delightful goal. And Tottenham are 3-0 up against Chelsea.
Why don't you get your excuses in now, Chris?
I don't even know where to start, to be honest with you. So we'll start with the first goal, which I didn't think was a free kick. I'll be completely honest. I didn't think it was a free kick. And obviously they scored from the goal. the defender, David Luiz, he looked like he'd been out on the drink the night before because he was awful. Everything that he was doing, he was just doing wrong, like things that were wrong. Every time someone was passing to him, I was just thinking, just stop passing to him because he's just going to lose the ball. I thought Chelsea should have had a penalty after the first goal. I thought they were unlucky. I thought that Hoyt, whatever, was this Hoyt? Is it Hoyt? Foyt? I don't know. The Argentine,
Foyt.
that guy. I felt that there was more than enough contact on Hazard. But after that, I don't think I've got any complaints, to be honest with you. Just, the Kane goal, David Luiz again. I don't know why is he not trying to block it? Does he think it's going wide? I have no idea. And then the third goal, I think that was where they just about gave up. I think Son knew that he had the pace on Jorginho and David Luiz. Again, David Luiz I don't know what he was doing. He just kind of ran past him. He went to tackle him and then completely just ran past him. And then Son scored. Slight consolation with Giroud scoring, but
it wasn't even a consolation, Chris. Come on.
I've
heard every excuse under the sun over the last couple of days, even to the extent of Spurs should be docked points because their stadium's not ready, which has got absolutely nothing to do with that game. This is quite nice for me because I can be a bit less biased than I think I normally am. But I think Spurs rattled Chelsea from the first whistle, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. They stopped them playing, they pressed them high, they hurried them when they had the ball. I disagree with you. I think it was a free kick. I think free kicks are given for a lot less than that. I think that the thing from a Chelsea point of view, you probably should be more worried about is how Dele Alli got to the ball first and then it went through the keeper's hands. I think the keeper should have done a lot better with that. Completely agree with you. David Luiz you may as well have taken him off and played with 10 men because
exactly what I said to my dad.
To get out of the way of Harry Kane's shot. I mean, you can see the shock on Harry Kane's face that he scored, and you can almost see it in the majority of the crowd in the picture, because I don't think anyone was expecting that to go in. I will agree with you. I think the first one was a penalty, but you can't dwell on that. You didn't lose because of that one call. Son could have had a hat-trick in the first half. His goal to make it 3-0. You're right. The Chelsea defence just could not cope with him. But I think they were rattled. I don't think they were expecting Spurs to play the way they did, and they absolutely dominated that game, and they thoroughly deserved to win it. 3-1, Chris. 3-1.
The annoying thing is that I can't really disagree.
You don't. I don't think there's any excuses. Look, Chelsea were going to lose at some. They were going to lose at some point.
Yeah.
What makes it even better is that it was Spurs they lost to. But they were going to lose at some point. Hazard was completely ineffective. He hardly did anything in the game. I thought Jorginho was nullified. Whatever it is he does very well, Spurs didn't let him do it. N'Golo Kante, why he's being played further upfield, I don't quite get it when he's the best at what he does in like a holding role.
Definitely.
And I think Chelsea have only got themselves to blame.
I think
you can fire all the excuses at Spurs you want about all these trophies you've won, etc., etc., etc. You got beaten by the better side. It's as simple as that.
Morata.
Who is this man you speak of?
It's just slightly. He's the man, Rich, that has the most offsides this season, or not. that guy just will not stay on side. It was like 3 times in the first half he was caught offside. Let alone the week before, like last week, not last week, the week before. 5 times he was caught offside in one game.
I'm so glad that he turned Spurs down because he knew he wouldn't get in ahead of Harry Kane. I don't get him, to be honest. He's in the world of like Shevchenko. He was brilliant before he went to Chelsea. I don't think he was great at Chelsea, was he? I think Morata's the same.
No.
I don't think he gives you anything apart from a break in play when he's flagged for
only
offside.
2 strikers in the last 10 years that have been remotely good for Chelsea. See if you can name them.
Drogba and Costa.
There you go. Because they were good at holding the ball up. He just doesn't want to hold the ball up. He just wants to take players on, and someone has got to tell him in his head he is not as good as what he thinks. He might have been able to get away with that in Serie A, in La Liga. He cannot get away with playing like that. I'm afraid. Look, there's no way that he's going to be able to take on 3 defenders from Tottenham. Not a chance. And what happened when Giroud come on? Giroud come on. We had someone in the middle to aim for, to hold the ball up, and he scores. It doesn't really matter that he scored, to be honest, but he got a goal.
I agree with you. The main difference in that game was Harry
in the 90th minute.
Oh, have they?
Cheeky.
Oh, best team ever, United. Best team ever, going to win it. The reason Spurs won that game is because Son, Eriksen, Ali, Kane played to their potential.
Just say the 11.
Yeah, but Hazard, Willian, Morata, all your players that make a difference did nothing because Spurs didn't let them. It should have been more. We should have got 4, 5, maybe even 6.
I cannot disagree with you. There, it was Fellaini that scored for Man United as well.
Oh, yeah. With his head, I bet.
Everyone's going to know. Everyone's going to know who he is. They're going to be like, "Who scored that goal?"
There you go. The torture's over for you, Chris.
There may be, to be honest with you.
There may be 1 or 2 more references, but we'll move on.
So we'll move on. That was the weekend review for the Premier League. So next up, Rich has got the reviews of the Championship and League One.
Yeah, I'm hoping there's some clues in here for the teaser. So anyway, quick summary of the Championship. Sorry?
You could try and count them, but is whether if you can remember what teams haven't.
I don't know. I'm just hoping there's a few in here that I can pick out. So Norwich remain 2 points clear at the top after a comprehensive 4-1 win away at Swansea. So that's their 6th straight win in the league, and from those 6 games, they've got a goal difference of plus 11. So Norwich are on an absolutely brilliant run of form at the moment. Middlesbrough are still second. They beat Brentford 2-1 away in the late kickoff on Saturday. And that was their second win on the bounce, but they're also undefeated in their last 6 games, but there are a few draws in there. Leeds are in third. They beat Bristol City 2-0 at home, and West Brom are in fourth after beating bottom club Ipswich 2-1 away on Friday night. Sheffield United were the only team in the top 8 who didn't win at the weekend. They drew 2-2 away at Rotherham, who are in 19th. Derby make up the final playoff spot in 6th. They got a 2-1 win away at Sheffield Wednesday, so a good 3 points for Derby. At the bottom, Ipswich remain firmly rooted. They're now 6 points from safety. As mentioned, they went down 2-1 at home to West Brom. Hull are in 23rd, but they're 5 points ahead of Ipswich. But they lost 2-0 at home to Nottingham Forest, which was their first defeat in 4 games. Bolton occupy the final relegation place, but they did get their first point in the last 5 games with a 1-1 draw away at Millwall. On to League One. So Portsmouth are now 4 points clear at the top after a 2-1 win away at Scunthorpe, which was their 7th win in the last 9 games. And the other 2 were draws, so they're unbeaten in 9 now, Pompey, and still only 1 defeat all season. So it looks like we could have the South Coast Derby back next year in the Championship. If Saints go down and Pompey go up, it's looking a little bit more realistic. Sunderland are in second, but they could only pick up a point at the weekend away at Walsall. But it was actually a good point because they went down to 10 men after Max Power was sent. What a name, Max Power. Was sent off in the 22nd minute, and then they went 2-0 down. But Sunderland pulled one back and then got an equaliser in the 89th minute. So it turned out to be quite a good point in the end. Barnsley are third. They picked up a point at home, drawing 1-1 with Doncaster. Luton are up to fourth after their 4th win in their last 5. They beat Gillingham 3-1 away. Peterborough are 5th after picking up a point in a 1-1 draw away at Coventry. That was on Friday night. But no win in the last 3 now for Peterborough, so their form's kind of dipped. Charlton make up the last playoff place in 6th, and they beat Bristol Rovers 3-1 at home. At the bottom, 3 of the bottom 4 won, but it doesn't really change the positions that much. Bradford are bottom. They beat Oxford 2-0 at home. Wimbledon are in 23rd. They won 2-1 at home to Southend, and Plymouth in 22nd won 2-1 at home to Fleetwood. Bristol Rovers make up the last relegation place in 21st, and they lost 3-1 away at Charlton. And that's League One.
Okay, so moving on to League Two. Lincoln have gone back to the top of League Two on goal difference after they drew 1-1 with Mansfield. MK Dons, who were top, lost only their 2nd game of the season, and obviously that makes them sit down to 2nd. They lost 3-2 to Stevenage. Stevenage actually scored twice in the last 5 minutes to get them the 3 points. Colchester are up to 3rd after they drew 1-1 with Exeter. Mansfield in 4th. They also drew to top side Lincoln, and then they both let Newport, who suffered a 2-1 defeat to Cheltenham. So their poor goal difference now stands at -3, and they're in 5th. All 3 of those teams, so Colchester, Mansfield and Newport, are all on 32 points. It's pretty close at the top. Exeter just behind them in 6th and Tranmere in 7th after they were held to a 1-1 draw with Oldham. So none of the top 7 in League 2 won this weekend. So most of them drew. I think 5 out of the 7 drew. 2 of them lost. So down to the bottom end of the table, Macclesfield registered their 2nd win of the season at home to Yeovil. They are still 7 points from safety, though. Macclesfield still need to gain some wins, but obviously they got Sol Campbell. He's just been named manager of Macclesfield, so maybe they
give him a week. He won't last a week.
Jeez. Notts County are the other team in the relegation zone. They did manage to pick up a point though. They drew 1-1. But this is quite a good one. So Notts County, who drew with Morecambe 1-1. Kevin Ellison scored for Morecambe in the last 2 minutes. He's 39. Much travelled striker, Kevin Ellison.
There's still hope for me yet, Chris.
Yeah, 39 he is. So pretty good.
There you go.
So, well, I said that no team in the top 7 won this weekend, but no team in the bottom 6 lost this weekend. So, yeah.
That's the wrong way round.
Yeah.
Well, I just give you some news hot off the press because there were some matches tonight. So especially in League One. So Sunderland have won, Portsmouth have won again, Peterborough have won, Luton have won, and Charlton have won. So the top teams are all winning again in League One. In the Championship, Norwich have drawn 0-0 with Hull. So some drop points there for Norwich. Leeds have won, Middlesbrough have drawn, so both of the top two have drawn today. And just in the EFL Cup, so the rearranged game, Leicester have just beaten Saints on penalties. So after the match finished 0-0 after 90 minutes, and Leicester, they've just won 6-5 on penalties to go through to the next round. So another blank game for Saints with no goals.
There were full fixture in the League Two as well this evening. MK Dons won, so they've gone back top now. Lincoln drew 1-0 away. Yeovil lost 3-0 to Port Vale. Great result there. Macclesfield have won again. They've beaten Exeter away. So
they've beaten Yeovil and Exeter in the last two games.
Yeah, so they're having some good times against West Central teams. So that Macclesfield are actually now only 4 points off safety now. So it's the Sol Campbell effect, mate.
Yeah,
they've won and they've not conceded a goal.
I still give him a week. Right, okay. So we'll wrap up the review there. So that's the end of part one. So we'll be back in part two for our special topic, which is VAR, a rundown of the predictions, and we'll let you know what's coming up next week. So we'll see you in
Hi mate, sorry, me again. I've just thought of a really good feature we could do, like linking the relevance to team shirt sponsors to their form in the league this season. I thought Chelsea would be quite a good place to start, because I think they're sponsored by some tyre company, aren't they? And I think the wheels are well and truly falling off tonight, so I just thought it might be relevant. Anyway, let me know. Speak to you later, mate. Bye.
And welcome back to episode 15 of View from the Sideline podcast. This is part two, and we are going to talk our special topic this week is around VAR, which a lot of decisions this weekend in the Premier League I think would have benefited from VAR, but we'll go through our feelings on the situation. But for me, just to start off, I actually think it's a good idea. I think, referees seem to be missing key decisions week in, week out, and they are getting a lot of blame for these decisions. Not saying that they probably should be seeing these things, but if it's affecting teams' overall position in the league, I think maybe it is time that we definitely have VAR. Football has come a long way in the last sort of 10 years, and only a few years back we saw goal line technology come in, and even then it was still like, should it be here, shouldn't it be here? It's the same with VAR. I think once it's here, I think it will just be the norm. But let's see what you feel, Rich, on
well, yeah, I mean, I agree. I just want to clear something up. So I know that you said about the free kick for Spurs' first goal against. Sorry, I'm going back to that game. I do apologise. That the first goal, if VAR was around, it would have cleared that up. That it wasn't actually a foul. But so there's four types of decisions that VAR can be used to review, and they are goals. So whether there was a violation during the attacking phase of play, such as an offside or foul. It can be used to review penalty decisions. Other fouls are not reviewable unless they are linked to a direct red card decision. So VAR would not be used for your normal free kicks. And the fourth reason it can be used is for mistaken identity in awarding a red or yellow card. So I just wanted to prove you wrong, Chris, just because that was another excuse as to why Chelsea lost. So they're the four reasons that VAR can be used to review a decision. Like you say, there were a few over the weekend. I would probably say the Bournemouth offside goal that was disallowed probably Fellaini's stamp, I probably think would have gone to VAR because it's a possible red card decision. I think the Watford penalty that was not given would have gone to VAR as well. But I agree with you. I think it needs to come into football. I think personally, I think it was a success at the World Cup. I think, as you mentioned, goal line technology, I think that's only been good for the game. I think it clears up a lot of discussion around was it or wasn't it over the line. Now you have a definitive answer. And I think that's what VAR does. I mean, I think part of what makes football the game that it is the debate, and it is the difference of opinion, and it's the arguments, if you like, that come up on a Monday morning because of decisions that were made over the weekend. But I think for the good of the game, I think VAR needs to come in, and I think it's about time. The Premier League, as one of the leading leagues in the world, when you look at the other leagues that are using it, I think it's a good thing that they're going to start next year.
Yeah, the actual concept of VAR has been discussed for a while, but it was actually first trialled in the 2012-2013 season, on and off, but it wasn't actually used. It was just used in games where they were looking at key decisions throughout the games.
Yeah,
that was used in the Dutch league.
Do you know what league it was first used in a competitive top flight match?
I believe.
This should have been the teaser.
When I looked into it, I know there was a live trial in 2016 in an MLS reserve game, but I don't know top flight. I'm not entirely sure.
So the first time it was used in a top flight professional club game was in the A-League. I thought you would have known that, Chris.
Oh right, yeah. Actually, no, I did know that.
In 2017,
yeah, so the A-League were the first to sign up for it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was between Melbourne City and Adelaide, and it finished 1-1.
But they didn't have a review, did they?
No, the game was completed without VAR being called upon, even though it's the first game it was being used at. I mean, so what the one thing that sticks out for me that needs to become better with VAR, and I think I can probably only use the World Cup as a barometer, if you like, is how they're going to figure out how to tell fans that are actually in the stadium what's going on, because I think that's one thing that sort of was, well, to be honest with you, I think any game or any competition or any league that's used VAR, that seems to be the overriding feedback that comes back from fans, is that they're sat in the stadium but they've got no idea what is being reviewed.
So in cricket, am I right in saying in cricket they use the big screens? I mean, rugby well, I'm not 100% sure, but I think, like you said, there are a few issues. I think that obviously they are going to hopefully sort out before.
But on that, I don't think Premier League grounds show contentious incidents on replays.
No, they don't.
So I doubt they would do that with VAR. But there's got to be a way.
They don't have to show say it was a penalty decision. They don't need to show that. They just put up there, like, I don't know, VAR. I don't know. They just need something on there to let the fans know what's happening. I think the other thing as well is the amount of time that it can take for a decision to be made using VAR. I think a couple of times in the World Cup, it was like the referee was listening to the guy in the control center. They're not sure. Then the referee has to go over to the TV monitor on the side of the pitch to have a look. But I'm not sure how you speed it up. That's the thing. So
I can actually tell you what the average time is, Chris. The average time to review a VAR decision is 80 seconds.
Okay.
So
That's not too bad.
that's since it's been in use. It's not, but a couple of things. One, that's an average time, and I don't know if you think of say Spurs Arsenal, for example. So it's a fiery game. There's a lot on the line. You could have 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 calls that go to VAR, and if you're talking just over a minute for each one, I think that's quite a delay. I just hope it doesn't stop the flow,
Yeah, I think
the flow of the game
yeah,
too much.
I'm hoping not, because obviously it can, they add time on at the end, don't they? I believe so.
Well, I think they stop the clock.
They stop the clock. Okay.
I think so, or they just add the time on at the end, like they do for injuries or something like that.
So like rugby. So in rugby, they have the referees mic'd up. So obviously, if you're sat home watching the game, you can hear what the referee is saying to like the guy in the stadium who's looking at if it's a try, if it's not a try.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's something they'd ever consider in football, having a referee mic'd up?
No. knows the short answer, because I think even though that you probably wouldn't associate with it, I think there's too much risk of bad language being picked up through the mic. For some reason, rugby players don't seem to swear, because especially in rugby, for dissent, you've got your additional 10-meter penalties. There's actually consequences for sort of disrespect towards the referee. I think there's been talk for ages about refs should be mic'd up in Premier League games, but I don't think they'd ever do it. I think the only thing you could possibly ever hear would be the conversation between the ref and the officials who are watching it on TV. Maybe once they're reviewing it, I don't know, but actually on the pitch, I'm not sure you'd ever see it.
You don't even when you're watching the game at home, you don't all you see is they normally bring up a box in like the top left or right hand corner of like the control center of where they're looking at the decision, and they've got about 80 TV screens in there, and you don't really know what they're looking at. You don't know what they're thinking.
Well, the benefit you've got from watching it on football, and I did find this in the World Cup, is because the TV replays are pretty much instant, and they're from so many different angles, you can kind of decipher for yourself what it is they're reviewing.
You're tending to be someone in the VAR control room, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think if I was sat in a stadium and there was an incident in the penalty area, so you could be using VAR to decide whether it's a penalty, or it could be completely the other way, where you have VAR in it to see if it was a dive, which could be a second yellow card, which would lead to a sending off. I mean, I know there's not sort of 100 different options that they could be looking at, but I just think they need to make it a bit more user friendly for the crowds that are there.
After the game, when they do the interviews are going to not last as long, because they're just going to say you played very well, or you didn't play very well.
Yeah, exactly. But that's part. But that's part of it. You're almost gonna lose all of that. I mean,
the day's going to be 30 minutes less of this, right?
Yeah, but
actually going to have to go more of the games.
There's one thing that I noted down that I hope they can kind of rectify. That so if you look at refereeing at the moment, I think there are slight differences in the interpretation of the laws which are put down by referees. I think that's why you get some decisions that are given and some that aren't, because you can read a rule book as much as you want, but there is that human element to it. Yeah. But I don't know whether you get the same problem with VAR. So is there a different? But because you're being told because the referee's being told in their earpiece or whatever it is they wear, is there an interpretation of what VAR would be used for?
Oh yeah.
But because someone else because the referee needs all the help they can get. So I think the majority of VAR reviews that happened in the World Cup were because, if not all of them, were because the referees watching it on the monitor advised the referee that there's probably something he might want to go back and have a look at. Because I think that's how it works. I don't think the referee on the pitch instigates VAR, do they? Well, and unless they want to.
Well, did you see the situation? I can't remember which league it was, but it was a couple months ago where the players actually were in the dressing room and the referee ordered them to come back out on the pitch because he'd reviewed a decision.
Yes, and they went back out for a penalty.
Yeah, they had to come back out for.
Yes, I think that was in Italy.
Was it Italy?
Italy or Germany? I think that was. Yeah.
It was Germany. It was Germany. Yeah, I remember now. It was Germany.
And they had to go. They had to go back out and take the penalty, then go back in for half time. Crazy. It's crazy.
I think they need to iron out a few issues, but I would say just look how the German Italian leagues are doing, because they've been using it for over a season now. I think Spain came on it this year, but I think it's still, it's going to stop the debates after the game saying, "Oh, we lost the match because we didn't get a free kick, we didn't get a penalty, so and so shouldn't have been sent off."
So it's basically going to stop what you've been like all weekend after Chelsea lost.
I can't argue with technology, mate.
No, but you've thrown every excuse under the sun out.
I can't argue with.
Right. Okay.
Although they should have got some, like the penalty was a penalty. VAR would have cleared that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I've got another fact to throw at you, Chris. So during the 2018 World Cup, where VAR was in use, there was a record 29 penalties that were awarded during that tournament, which beat the previous record of 17, which was from the 1998 World Cup. So that's almost double the amount of penalties that were awarded. 22 of which were scored. So obviously there were 7 that were missed. But if you can cast your mind back to the World Cup, pretty much whenever there was any sort of contact in the box from a corner or a set piece or something, the refs were blowing for penalties. And the defenders never seemed to learn their lesson. So I wonder if that's something that's going to be sort of relevant in the Premier League next year, if we're going to see an increased amount of penalties.
So you see it week in, week out, don't you, from corners, just people shoving.
Yeah, but I don't think there's been that increase in the amount of penalties awarded in the other leagues that are using VAR. But maybe that's because I know that the FIFA directive on refereeing is different to UEFA. So that's why there's always this difference in sort of refereeing between European football and the Premier League, for example. Because I think there's different directives for each one. So maybe that's a FIFA thing as to why there was more penalties in the World Cup. But
I'm sure we will be having this discussion next season after the first round of games.
it will half the time of our podcasts. We'll just say he scored a good goal. They obviously deserve to win because technology deemed that they should win.
Technology is one. Yeah. But we could. I think as long as they just take their time from now until August next year and just ironing out the few issues that might arise, I think it will improve the game, and this time in 2 years, it will just be the normal. It will just be the normal of the air.
Exactly like goal line technology.
Yeah.
I mean, just going back to goal line technology. Did you see the one in the Wolves Huddersfield game when it was literally like a millimetre of the ball was on the line, so it wasn't given as a goal? It was a brilliant clearance from the defender on the line, but when goal line technology first came on, you thought that's over the line, but there was the smallest bit of ball that wasn't, hence why it wasn't given. So it proves it works.
I think.
I think VAR will be the same. I think once it's bedded in, sort of give it till October, November, couple of months into the season, I think it'll be fine. I think it's a good thing.
We'll just get used to it after a while. I don't think there'll be any. As long as they can sort out the communication to the fans inside the stadium, I think it'll be all right.
Yeah, no, I agree. Good topic.
Yeah, the special topic on VAR, and we're going to go into some news on predictions.
Yes, so I think I came out on top on the predictions over the weekend.
Yeah.
If that's right, Chris. I think there was one game I got absolutely spot on. So I got 10 points for it. Can you remember which one it was?
Yeah, I know which one it was.
Yeah, Tottenham Chelsea. Yeah, I predicted 3-1 to Spurs on that one. So yeah, I came out on top, so I got 25 points. Chris had 15, and then our guest last week, Scott, had 10. So no change at the top of the prediction table. We've got Dave this week is our guest predictor. He's a United fan.
Yeah, happy tonight.
Yeah, so a bit happier than he was at the weekend. So we've got a bit of a mixture of league games and then 3 games from the second round of the FA Cup in this week's predictions. So they're available on Facebook and on Twitter, and you can see all previous predictions by week and the updated table on the website at www.vftsl.co.uk. So all the prediction details are on there. So, and we'll be posting the results over the weekend from this week's games.
So, the teaser, Rich.
Yes.
You thought any more about the answer?
I can definitely think of 2, but I'm sure there's more. Originally, I thought there was none. I thought it was a trick question.
I don't do tricks.
No. I can think of Rotherham and Preston. They're the 2 that I can think of, but I'm thinking there must be more than that. I'm going to guess. I'm going to say 5.
You're going with 5.
I can. I definitely know 2, but I'm thinking there's got to be more than that. So I'm just plucking a number out of thin air. I'm going to say 5.
5. Okay. So, what were the teams that you said that you knew definitely?
Well, the ones I'm thinking of are Rotherham and Preston.
So Rotherham and Preston, you are correct. They have not been in the Premier League.
I'm trying to think of who the bottom 4 is and who the top 6 are. Then just trying to.
So
Millwall.
The Millwall are another one.
I'm out. It's a guess. It's a pure guess.
Answer? So
I'm going to go with 5 because I'm not going to change my mind.
So you were right in saying that Preston and Rotherham, Millwall have also not been in there. Brentford have not been in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And Bristol City.
Is 5 right?
5 is right.
Oh, it must be my lucky weekend.
Do
you know what? I wasn't sure on Millwall.
To end.
I wasn't sure on Millwall because I remember them playing like United, but I'm sure that was in the FA Cup.
That was FA Cup final.
Yeah, but I was thinking, were they in the Premier League at the time? I thought they might have had one season in there.
If you look at the league table, they are 15th, 16th, 17th, 19th, and 21st. So they're all.
I wouldn't have thought of Brentford.
So that is crazy. So you think 19 of the Championship sides at the moment have been in the Premier League?
Yeah, that's crazy. But how many in lower divisions? If you look at your Sunderlands, your Portsmouths, your Bradfords.
So, yeah, you've also got, so in League One, I can tell you who've been in that. So League One, you've got Portsmouth, Sunderland, Barnsley, Charlton, Blackpool. There was more.
There's loads, isn't there? I can't believe I got that right. I cannot believe that. That was
Finnair,
I wouldn't have got Brentford.
your week is
If I'd kept
complete.
going, I might have thought of Bristol, but I wouldn't have got Brentford.
Your week is complete, mate. So
It is.
moving on to next week. So next week, we're actually going to do for the special topic. The FA Cup third round draw is on the Monday. So when we're recording on Tuesday, we're going to look at a few of the ties that have been made. It's always a big occasion, the third round draw. I always love watching the third round draw. So we're going to have a look at some of the top games from that draw, and obviously, hopefully, some of the lower league sides have managed to get in from this weekend's games as well. So hopefully, there'll be some. Hopefully, Solihull can get through and get Chelsea.
That'd be a scalp.
I normally hope for Yeovil versus Chelsea, but that ain't gonna happen anytime soon at the moment. So
no, not the way Chelsea are playing.
Okay.
That's the last one, I promise. That's the last one.
Okay. All right. Well, that is it for episode 15. Rich, have you got anything else to add?
I've just got one thing to add, which is not about the Spurs Chelsea game. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody who's listening to the podcast, who's subscribed to the podcast through the various channels, and that's helped us on the way so far. And we've just hit 1,000 views on YouTube, which is something that we didn't think would happen for a long time when we started this. I know we're 15 episodes in, but I think for Chris and I, it's quite an achievement to hit that number of views just through the YouTube channel. So obviously we're also on iTunes and Spotify, so we've got listeners through there. But yeah, it's a great achievement. So thank you to everybody.
Yeah, let's echo that as well. So we hit 1,000 listens and downloads. I think last week, wasn't it, through the 3 channels?
Yes, it was.
But, we literally have just hit 1,000 on YouTube. But like Rich said, I think when we started, I always said from the start I'd be happy if it was just one person listening, but let alone people listening, week in, week out, which is obviously great. But yeah, if you if you've got anything you want to discuss with us around football, just get in contact with us through Facebook, through Instagram, through Twitter. Just search View from the Sideline, and we'll pop up there. And yeah, I think that is about it from me. So have a good week, everyone, and I will see you next week.
Yeah, speak to you next week. 3-1, Chris. 3-1.